Alright, so class number 2. Um, First off, if you could do me a favor and the worksheet that you guys were supposed to work on for today, the composition of functions worksheet, I'm going to have a folder on Google Classroom, but every teacher is pretty much saying that they're having an issue of kids turning it in. So if you just want to email that to me at michael.pelster@borgia.com, that would be great. Then I can get that graded for you and so forth. We do have a quiz today over the composition of functions, so you will need to do that after watching this video. The first thing I want to do is go through the answers for the composition of functions worksheet. I will post this on Google Classroom if you need to see them slower, but I'll kind of scroll through as we go. Remember, for the quiz, I'll expect you to be able to do composition of functions when there are numbers, so like everything shown on this page, and I will also require you to be able to do the composition of functions when it's an X in that spot instead. A couple of issues that I have seen so far would be something like numbers 19 and 21 are my main ones, so I'm going to kind of walk through those just because I'm seeing that a lot. So 19, we've got h of x and g of x, and we want to find h composed of g of x. So remember, what that's really asking you to find is h of g of x. And so the first thing I need to find, or the first thing I need to do, is plug my g of x function into anywhere I see an x in my h of x function. So I'm going to plug in 4x plus 1 in for that x right there. So, parentheses, 4x plus 1 squared minus 2. And so the kids did the work and they didn't get this answer, the 16x squared plus 8x minus 1. And the issue was, I'm going to put this in blue, and then I'll erase it and put it in something else. Kids were just simply squaring the 4x and getting 16x squared, and squaring the 1 and getting 1, and then attaching the minus 2 on. But remember, even when we did the notes, I talked about this. So this was a common mistake for kids and how it happens a lot. What we need to do here is take 4x plus 1 times 4x plus 1. Anytime there's a plus sign in a parentheses with a squared on it, that's what it's saying. It's saying write this twice and FOIL it. So 16x squared plus 4x plus 4x plus 1 minus 2. Combine my like terms then, 16x squared plus 8x and minus 1. And so now you see my answers match up, okay? If you need practice on this, a good one to work on would be something like 21. And granted, you have negative 2 plus x, and it's a little bit more complicated, but you have to plug that in and square it first. So go ahead and, if you got 19 and 21 wrong, try to see if maybe that was your mistake. Kind of something similar, but dealing with numbers, scrolling up now to number 8, we've got this g of f of 2. So now we have a number. And again, we want to go from the inside to the outside. So I'm going to take f of 2 first. So I'm plugging in 2 for that function. And remember, exponents go first. So I need to simplify this first. So I get 2 times 4 plus 5 is 8 plus 5, which gives me 13. So now I know f of 2 equals 13. So I'm trying to find g of 13. 3 times 13 plus 2 is 39 plus 2, and that's where my 41 comes from. If you have any questions on this, if I didn't answer any of the questions that maybe you have, please feel free to email me. Again, as I've talked about all day, my iPad will be around me, and I'll be able to respond to any questions you may have. So that is our refresher on the old material, or the material that was due today. Next up, you need to take your quiz. So you should have already turned in your worksheet, okay? And again, I will get you a grade for that. The quiz is posted underneath the March 20th tab on Google Classroom. You will be able to take that today. There will not be a time frame besides it's due by 3 o'clock on March 20th. So Friday, March 20th, this quiz is due by 3 p.m. Next week, there'll start being time frames. Like you'll have to take this quiz between 9:30 and 10 or so forth. But for today, you just need to turn this in by 3 p.m. and so that I can get it graded and so forth. All right. Then, after you're done with the quiz, you're going to listen to the rest of these notes over the new material. So go ahead and pause this video now and work on the quiz. All right, so our new material is called Section 8.1, Multiplying and Dividing Rational Expressions. And again, I'll try to put some of the more notes on Google Classroom. For the rest of this break, my plan is to have basically a note day, have a work day, and the next one be a quiz day. With this section, it's going to be kind of a note day, a note and a work day, and then the quiz. So that way we have plenty of time to be able to figure out what we're doing. So I'm just going to get us started on rational expressions here. And so the first thing we're going to do is kind of a review. We're going to find 4x to the 0, y to the negative second, z to the third, and 4x. And we're going to try to simplify it. And so the first thing I want to talk about is this x to the 0. Any variable or any number to the 0 power just simply equals the number 1. Not the exponent 1, the number 1. So, simplest part of it, when you see something to the 0 power, just cross that out because it means nothing to us. We can multiply 1 by anything and it doesn't change the equality of the statement, so we don't really even need that in there. Next, we've talked about this, we're going to simplify where we can. I've got a 4 up top and a 4 down below, so those cancel. And then I got this negative 2 exponents. Again, something we've talked about. Negative exponents mean if I'm in the top, move me to the bottom. If I'm in the bottom, move to the top. So, the z to the third stays up top. That's a positive exponent. I have my x down below, and I'm also moving this y squared down, which makes it positive. So my answer would just be z to the third xy squared. Next up, 2x to the fourth, y to the negative third, and negative 1. My first thing I would do is just simply take care of this negative 1. Remember, that just tells you to move down to the bottom. So I've got 1 over 2x to the fourth, y to the negative third. The last thing we need to do is get rid of this negative exponent right here. Again, if I'm in the bottom, it means move to the top. So I have my y to the third up top now, and my 2x to the fourth all stays down below. And there's my final answer. Alright, so now let's talk about what a rational expression is. And again, I won't ask you to write this definition out. This will just kind of help you understand it. A ratio of two polynomial expressions, such as 1700 over d minus 33, is called a rational expression. Just as we reduce fractions, we simplify a rational expression by dividing the numerator and denominator by their greatest common factor. And so hopefully you see greatest common factor and you remember factoring. We're going to spend a lot of time factoring in this unit, both when we're multiplying, dividing, and when we're adding, subtracting. So, for example, looking at the fraction 8 over 12. Well, I can break that up as 2 times 4 and 3 times 4. Alright, well, I have a 4 over a 4, which those would just cancel and leave me 2 over 3. Okay, so I'm breaking it down to its smallest parts and figuring out what the common factor is. When I look on my rational expression side, x squared minus 4x plus 3. Anytime you see plus and minuses in denominators and numerators, that's telling you you're going to have to factor this. So, if I factor this, I'm going to get x minus 3, x minus 1, over x minus 3, x minus 2. So again, I've got 4 parts. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Well, what's in common? What can I cancel here? Both top and bottom have an x minus 3, which just leaves me with x minus 1 over x minus 2 as my answer. Alright, so using that, I want you to try to simplify example 1. So go ahead and pause the video and do it on a separate sheet of paper so that way we can work our way through it. Alright, now that you've done so, the first thing you have to do, again, you see plus and minuses in parentheses, which means I need to factor it. So my 5x stays there, and I have x plus 3, x plus 1. Again, x minus 6, I can't factor it all, but I have an x squared there, which tells me I can factor it, and it should look an awful lot like difference of squares. So now that I've factored, those 2 lines are gone, and I look at what do I have in common. Well, x plus 3 on the bottom, x plus 3 on the top, nothing else is in common, so my final answer there is what do I have left up top? 5x and x plus 1, x minus 6, and x minus 3. And there is my final solution. Part B says, under what conditions is this expression undefined? Well, undefined means how can I get 0 in my denominator? Or the only time we are undefined in mathematics is I got a 0 in my denominator. So after I factored, I got to this point. And notice when I said undefined, I said nothing about my numerator. I said my denominator. So I'm wondering, where can I get a 0 in my denominator? Because I'm going to be undefined if I get a 0 in my denominator. Well, I've got 3 x's here. And my first x, my red x, what number do I need to plug in there to get 0 in that parentheses? Well, that would be 6. In my second one, what number do I need to plug into that blue spot? X plus 3. Well, if I plug a negative 3 in, that parenthesis gives me a 0, which would make that whole problem undefined. And finally, in my pink, if I plug a 3 in for there, 3 minus 3 is 0, which gives me undefined. So therefore, I am undefined at 6, negative 3, and 3. Notice I went back to my original problem right here. Not what I canceled. I had to include the x plus 3. I can't simply just look at my final answer and say, oh, it's only 6 and 3. I got to include the original x plus 3 also. So go ahead and work on example 2 now. For what values is x squared minus 5x minus 14 over 4x, x squared plus 6x plus 8 undefined? So go ahead and pause the video for me. Alright, so remember, all we care about is the denominator. If we're going to be undefined, it's in my denominator. So I'm going to go ahead and factor my denominator. And I got this 4x out front. So again, I've got 3 x's. In my pink x, I've got 4 times x. So, if I plug in a 0 to that spot, it will give me 0 because 0 times 4 is 0. In my red spot, I've got x plus 4. Well, what number do I need to plug in for x? That would be negative 4. And in blue, I have x plus 2. If I plug in negative 2 in for that spot, negative 2 plus 2 gives me 0, and that's where I get my solution there. So that is when we talk about undefined, that is what we're talking about. All right. So on example 3, all I want you to do is simplify. And so it looks kind of funky because it looks like, what do they want us to do? In the denominator, I can't factor anything. 5w plus y, 3y minus 4w. In my top, 4w squared minus 3wy, and w plus y. Well, in this spot right here, hopefully we all see that I have a w in common. So let's pull that out. Alright, so we know with rational expressions, we're looking to cancel something. And right now, nothing is the exact same. But if I look at these two parentheses, my top one, 4w minus 3y, my bottom one, 3y minus 4w. So up top, I've got a positive 4w, but down below I have a negative 4w. Up top, I got a negative 3y. Down below, I got a positive 3y. How can I make those parentheses the exact same? What can I pull out to make my signs change? Well, hopefully you're saying to yourself, if I pull out a negative 1 of the top part, that's going to, first off, pull the negative out, so I have negative w now, just pulling that in front. And if I pull out a negative 1 of 4w, that's like dividing both of these by negative 1. So my 4w becomes negative 4w, my negative 3y becomes positive 3y, and my other parentheses do not change. So now, let's look at our top and bottom. Now, negative 4w and negative 4w, so again, looking at these two parentheses, positive 3y and positive 3y, those cancel, just leaving me with negative w plus y, over 5w plus y for my final answer. And so as I say below, sometimes you can factor out negative 1 in the numerator or the denominator to help simplify a rational expression. Alright, so I'm going to save the rest of these notes, as you can see right here, for next class. Like I said, I'm going to break this up into 2 parts since you took a quiz today. So your homework will be listed on the Google form on Google Classroom. Again, things you need to get done today. 1, check your homework problems. Make sure that you did them correctly. If you have any questions, please email me. 2, I need you to take the quiz over composition of functions by 3 p.m., which means it has to be emailed to me by 3 p.m. Central Time, not Pacific Time, nothing like that. By 3 p.m. Central Time, I need your quiz if you want credit for it. And then 2, listen to these notes and do the homework that is assigned on Google Classroom. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. I hope you're all doing well. Have a great day.